Next, I'm going to be shooting 5 rounds of AAC and 168 grain match hollow point. Again, that is AAC 168 grain hollow point. I got 5 rounds of AAC 168 grain. It's their OTM round. Right, that's 5 rounds. Shooting the 168 grain OTM round by AAC. Next I'll be shooting a 175 grain OTM round by AAC. That'll be 5 rounds of AAC 175 grain OTM hollow points. Lastly, I'm going to be shooting an additional 5 rounds of 168 grain match hollow points by Federal, loaded with Sierra hollow points. That was 5 rounds of Federal Premium 168 grain Sierra hollow points. First group showing is the 178 grain match, which would be this little guy right here. This was shot at 180 yards. Definitely a little bit bigger than what I would have been hoping for. Next is the OTM 168. So this one here. This is probably about one of the best 5-shot groups of the day. Again, this was shot at 180 yards. Hold off on that one. This one was my first 5-round group with the Sierra 168 grain Federal Gold Medal match ammo. I had a nice 4-round group going, then I had 1 flyer. You're still looking at probably a little over a 4.5-inch group at 180 yards. Then my last group is pretty much about the same, about a 4.5-inch group or so. Oh, 5.5. 5.5 at 180 yards. Next up is the 175 OTM. And this was another probably around a 5-inch group at 180 yards. Lost one of my targets. Then last up is 168 grain match load by AAC. This is probably the worst of the performers today. I can't really say anything has been that tight for a group, but I guess it is what it is. So that pretty much concludes all of my testing, and next up I'll go over the rifle. What I was shooting today is an Amalite AR10TAC18. That's an 18-inch medium heavy contour barrel, rifle length gas system. I removed the flash hider and put a, well, it had a muzzle brake on it originally, got rid of that, put a standard flash hider on it. I'm not a huge fan of shooting muzzle brakes on anything I might actually use for hunting. Coming back from there, it's got an M-LOK foregrip on it. I put Magpul rail covers on it. It's got a Magpul bipod on it. Coming back, I've got a Burris 4x20 XTR2 held on there by a LaRue tactical mount. It's got Magpul flip rear sight and front sight. Pretty much all of this is what came standard on the gun. It came standard with a Radian Talon ambidextrous charging handle, and it's got a STR buttstock on it by Magpul. Interesting thing is about the actual tube length here, it features the intermediate or the A5 length tube, and then uses a standard carbine buffer, little buffer, and then a rifle length spring on it to kind of help reduce some of that recoil impulse. My safety selector, I actually swapped out the original one with a Radian. I do like having the ability that when you're shooting, you can actually wrap your finger around here nicely and then use the 45-degree throw on the ambidextrous safety as a, almost like a little thumb stop there. Coming back, we've got an oversized Magpul magazine release. And of course, I swapped out the 2-stage trigger that was on it originally and went up to a Geisley high-speed match and have it configured as a DMR trigger. I removed the original trigger guard there and upgraded it to the Magpul aluminum trigger guard. I went away from the standard Magpul grip that was on it and actually opted up to the Myad grip. I like it where I can actually increase the size of it to get a little bit more of a competition, more like a target style grip on it. From there, about the only other modification I did to the gun. Of course, I've got a Magpul sling on it, and this has got a padded sling. I went to an ambidextrous QD cup on the STR stock, and I have a Magpul rail mounted QD slot up here. Now coming back, I also went with a Norgin ambidextrous magazine release. So that way the gun's a little bit closer to being a fully ambi gun. About the only thing that isn't is the bolt release. And that pretty much will sum up the AR10 TAC18. I do have, I guess the last thing I should talk about is I've got a slope level indicator here, and then I have a bubble level by Flatline Ops. And that should conclude a brief little overview of my Amalite AR10.